Why do grieving families have to beg for a deceased worker's final settlement or finiquito, like can say? Did you know that a family may have to wait for months before they can receive the final settlement, what we call finiquito, of a deceased worker, even when nobody disputes who the legal heirs are, because they already have the court-issued declaration of heirship, declaratoria de herederos. The reason lies in the way the procedure was designed, specifically Resolución Ministerial 1209, dated 2022, Article 18, which regulates how these funds must be released. In my view, the government insists on inserting itself into every aspect of people's private lives. Everything has to be supervised, approved, authorized. People are no longer free to decide what's best for themselves. Whether the employer pays the final settlement directly and later seeks official endorsement, or deposits the money into the government's custody fund, what we call depositos en custodia, the rules still require the heirs to produce a declaration of heirship, declaratoria de herederos. And if there is more than one heir, they must also obtain a special power of attorney authorizing one person to collect the money on behalf of everyone else. I'm not saying the government shouldn't make sure the money goes to the right people in the right amount. No, that protection is perfectly reasonable. What I question is the procedure they chose. Right when a family is going through one of the hardest moments, they are forced to begin inheritance proceedings, obtain birth certificates, gather identity documents, contact relatives who may be living abroad or may be living miles away, visit a notary public, arrange powers of attorney among the heirs, and if anything becomes complicated, the employer has no choice but to place the money into the government custody while the family waits weeks, even months, to receive money that already belongs to the deceased worker's estate. Meanwhile, life doesn't stop. Funerals expenses must be paid, medical bills are still waiting, they mean that's here, that's there. The person who passed away didn't leave only grief behind. Very often, they also left financial obligations that the family must somehow cover. On top of that, the household has sadly lost the monthly income. In many cases, the final settlement, finiquito, is the only source of emergency funds available. Take a look at the number of documents required. It is incredible. They don't even fit on a single screen. That's bureaucracy at its worst. And imagine the situation of the deceased worker was a foreigner. At that point, you may as well assume the money will never be recovered, or imagine a remote worker. Now the family has to travel to another labor district just to recover its own money. Transport, hotel, meals, travel expenses, more paperwork, and if the worker lives abroad, the process becomes almost impossible. Fortunately, there is a remarkably simple solution. Throughout the employment relationship, the employee is already depositing the employee's salary into the employee's bank account. That's the typical. So here's the obvious question. If the employee requested it in advance, why not to deposit the final settlement, finiquito, into that very same account? The money would remain in the deceased employee's bank account, and once the inheritance process is complete, the legal heirs could access those funds under the normal banking and inheritance rules. Problem solved. No unnecessary government custody, no avoidable delays, no administrative penalties for employers, and no grieving family forced to go from one government office to another just to recover money that belongs to them. The best part is that this solution doesn't even require a legislative change. It can be implemented today as nothing more than a good business practice. All the employee has to do is leave a clear written instruction asking the employer to continue depositing every employment-related payment into the same bank account, not only during the employment relationship, but also after it ends, including any payment that may eventually belong to the employer's legal heirs. That's exactly the purpose of the model we have developed, as you can see. And little by little, more employers are beginning to use it. If your company isn't doing this yet, what are you waiting for? I am not talking only about final settlements or finiquitos, no. I'm talking about monthly salary, vacation pay, compensation, what we call indemnización, Christmas bonus, what we call aguinaldo, wages increase, what we call incremento salarial, profit sharing payments, what we call prima de utilidades, everything. The employee keeps those instructions for their own benefit, for the benefit of their heirs, and even as a former employee. The law of obligations teaches us a very simple principle. When a monetary obligation is paid where the creditor has instructed, the obligation is extinguished and the payment is legally effective. That fundamental legal principle should not be undermined by regulations that ignore the reality of modern employment relationships. Ironically, many employees think this kind of document serves only to organize payroll payments. No, in reality, it can become one of the most effective tools for protecting a worker's family, while making the employer's legal obligations much easier to fulfill. Sometimes, a single page, one document, can save a grieving family months of paperwork, unnecessary expenses, and endless delays precisely when they are least able to deal with them. And one last thing, If necessary, an employer can even make these requests through WhatsApp. That will generally be legally valid. Even so, I still recommend doing it through a formal written letter just to avoid future disputes. Ameste y asesores laborales, productivity built on legal certainty and trust.